Tech News Weekly is sponsored by Hover.com. Domain names made simple. Go to gfq.hover.com and get 10% off your entire purchase. And by Stitcher Radio. Listen on the go via the Stitcher mobile app. For more information, go to stitcher.com/GFQ.
Starting Tech News Weekly in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome, everybody, to Tech News Weekly. I'm your host, Andrew Zarian. We are here once again to discuss everything that happened in tech. We were having a discussion on some of the stories before we began, so if you're watching the pre-show, you might have gotten a hint of what's going on. But I am joined by Erik Lanigan, as I am each and every other week. How you doing, Erik?
Each and every other week, exactly. Hey, Andrew, how's it going?
Not bad. We're getting some work done here at the house, so it's a crazy place. A dog hates them, and he's waiting for everybody to leave. And of course, I have Suncast here. He is not broadcasting live from my basement. I know a lot of people think he is. Let
him out. He deserves to be free.
Suncast only gets bread and water.
This is the entire basement right here.
That's it. Just one shower curtain long. I mean, that's
all I get, man. It's New York City. What do you expect?
Yeah, and
free Suncast.
Yeah, it's like, surprisingly, Suncast is paying about $20,000 a month in rent for that basement.
And surprisingly, that's a good deal.
Yeah, that's a very good deal here. This is a show where we run down the week's events in technology. I know Suncast worked hard on the notes. I added a couple stories. I do want to go straight into one story, and we were discussing it before the show, and Erik didn't really think it was a big news story. But with this, I'll tell you guys why I thought it was a big story. I'm trying to pull it up here, Suncast. Yeah, here it is, because I have your notes, and then I added some more to it. There we go. So the Sony stock, Sony has been doing awful the last couple of years. We all know that. They're not selling as many TVs. They're definitely not selling MP3 players like Apple is. I don't even think they're the standard when it comes to any technology at this point. For many years they were, but their stock has slid to a 30-year low on the Tokyo Stock Exchange. Now, you might wonder why this is such a big story. This is a big story, in my opinion, because this shows how a once top technology company, tech manufacturer, could slide and nearly fall into obscurity. And it's very easy to do that in a matter of 2 decades. Sony showed positive profits in the first 5 years. What does it say? First positive they predicts the first positive in 5 years for 2013. But they're streamlining their company much like Apple is. And I find it very interesting that a company like Sony is going to follow the Apple model when it comes to, I guess, releasing products and just corporate structure. I don't think I own a Sony product currently. I don't know many people that do own a Sony product, and this is a major problem for a company like this. I remember when their laptops were a big deal. Do you remember when they started coming out with those Vios, Erik?
Oh yeah, they were like $4,000.
I mean, crazy expensive. And let's talk about someone like Apple that doesn't put lower end products on the market. Sony kind of positioned themselves as a higher end computer company, and they failed miserably. Why? Why does this happen to a company, and what can Sony learn from their mistakes in the coming years? Suncast, I know we were talking about this earlier. What do you think of this?
I don't know really what to think. I mean, you're the business guy. Sony just doesn't really do anything for me these days. I guess their TVs are okay, but
I mean, the TVs aren't even okay. They're not even great at this point. I don't think people go out and buy a Sony.
What is the appeal of Sony these days?
Oh, yeah, what do you? I think the PS4, PS3.
I think that's about it. But really, when you think about it, Sony, there's so many companies out there that is very difficult to compete. Somebody or one or two companies can get a stranglehold on a particular market, and they're going to run away with it, and that's it. A good example of this is Verizon, AT&T in the mobile industry. They are basically the top two wireless carriers out there. You don't really see anybody else out there doing great. I mean, there's several other carriers out there, but they're nowhere along the same lines as AT&T and AT&T are.
Well, go ahead, Art.
I was watching Eastbound and Down, the HBO show with what's the actor's name? Kenny Powers is the character. What's the actor? Danny McBride.
That's McBride.
And there was this, I forget what the context was, but he tells someone, get the Sony, you deserve it. Big Sony TV, get the Sony because you deserve it. And I heard that and I thought, wow, he's not up on the current technology trends, because that used to be true with Sony gear for home theater, and it certainly isn't anymore. I've heard analysts from years, last 10 years or more, say that part of the Sony problem was their failure to move from their, award-winning, industry-leading Trinitron displays in the CRT world. Yeah. They failed to have a similarly unique best-of-breed technology for flat panel displays and HD TVs. Now, Sony is still very respected in professional broadcast gear, very high-end professional video camera and imaging, but in almost every other domain, they're considered, just another Toshiba, Sharp, or even lesser than Samsung now.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think that Samsung for many years was not a company you really went near. And it's become a dominant force in the television business now. And Sony, people aren't buying Sonys anymore. I don't know if it's a trust issue they have with the brand, or it's just that the brand recognition of Sony is really not there anymore. I found this very interesting, and it just shows how.
When's the last time you saw an ad for a Sony TV?
Oh, I see it every now and then. You'll see one, but the problem is people don't go and seek Sonys. Like Eric said, it was something that you deserved. It was like the Mercedes of televisions.
Yeah,
and any other product.
And what they've done since then is just coast on their brand name. They thought they had a luxury high-end brand name to use, but the products have not kept pace with the pricing and the marketing as this high-end exclusive style brand. Apple has completely taken them over as far as that goes. Now, as we were getting ready for the show, it occurred to me that I think one way forward for Sony could perhaps be emulate Apple, but on a more economy scale. Apple certainly is the affordable luxury right now of computers and computing devices. They're the Starbucks coffee right now of computers. So why can't Sony be more like the new the hip new image of McDonald's going forward, where they're almost Starbucks, but they're a few percentage points cheaper, and more mainstream. They could do that with their consumer products, make high-end, visually attractive, best of breed in technology, and price them aggressively cheaply, so that make them the economy brand of style, taste, and great products.
Do you remember those funky MP3 players they put out like early 2000s, and they were shaped like one was shaped almost like a mini boomerang?
Yeah,
like Sony had this weird angular look going for itself.
Didn't they do one called the Bean or something?
Something. They had a bunch of different ones, but I mean, they failed in that market too. So it's interesting. The iPad Mini rumors are starting up again, guys. Before we go into the story, I don't think this is going to happen. I don't think we're going to have an iPad Mini, but I'll go into this. According to iMore sources, I guess iMore is the website that we got this from, the iPad Mini will sport a 7-inch display, Retina display, and it's going to compete with the Kindle Fire. They're saying that it's going to be priced at possibly $200 or $250, and we should get ready by October 2012. Do we think this product is going to show up? I don't think we're going to get a lower-end iPad. I'll go to Eric first. Eric, do you think something like this will show up?
I thought Suncast was going to go first, but when I was playing around with the iPad 3, or the third generation iPad, as it's technically called, when it first came out, I was comparing it to my iPhone, and I thought there is a screen size, there's a class of product that could fit between these two items. But does Apple need to do that? Probably not, because right now they can get people to buy both an iPhone and an iPad. And if they were to make an in-between device for a market that really doesn't exist right now, I mean, it's not as if all the 7-inch tablets are vastly overselling the iPad and the iPhone. It's not even close. iPad is still far and away the most popular tablet. So as long as they can keep that up where people are buying both the phone and the larger screen iPad, I think they will and should continue to do that.
You know, the rumors were, story came out that Apple's going to put out a $799 Air for educational use. That's going to be their educational computer or laptop. Could this possibly be a educational tablet that they're going to release for schools? I mean, I could see them doing something like that potentially. But
I don't see that at all.
Now, you have the Kindle Fire, and it's a 7-inch display. Do you think it's a little too small? Because I do feel that display is a little too small for me.
It all depends on how you're using it. There are certain sizes that are better suited for certain situations. For example, I don't necessarily like going everywhere carrying around a 7-inch tablet or even a 12-inch tablet. That's not something that I would want to do. I'd rather take with something like a smartphone, an Android or an iPhone. I'd rather walk around with that. But if you're actually going away somewhere and you don't have a laptop to take with you, I think a Kindle Fire or an iPad, some sort of tablet, is a great device to have, no matter what the size is, whether it's 7-inch or 12 inches.
You know, we can speculate all we want, and we can say, well, that's not the Apple move to make. But we have to remember one thing. Steve Jobs is no longer in charge. And we have seen changes to the company.
To me, what this seems like is that people want Apple to compete with these lower-end tablets, such as the Kindle Fire and the Nook and all that.
I don't know if
what they're thinking is, all right, well, how's Apple ever going to compete with these low-end tablets that are only $200? People are going to go crazy for the $200 tablets over the Apple ones.
I see. Oh, you mean the more expensive ones?
Yeah.
I think they'll cross that bridge even when they come to it. I don't think they've arrived there yet. I think still the iPad is selling, far outpacing any of the 7-inch tablets, and especially any of the tablets from anyone except Amazon.
Yeah, this is the problem with this. It's not really a known market and we know that the iPad works. But we don't know if any other tablet is really going to be dominant in this market. So Apple really doesn't need to be competitive with the Kindle Fire. You know, they say, well, the Kindle Fire is the biggest threat to Apple. It's really not. The Kindle Fire is, you know what it is doing? It's taking away market share from all these other Android tablets that should be $199, and they're selling them for $500 or $499. I got a chance to play around with that Asus, the ePad. I think it's the ePad. It was running Ice Cream Sandwich. It was the worst experience of my life. It was just utterly useless. And I'm using this thing, and it's a beautiful display on it. And I'm like, what would possess you to buy this over an iPad? There's no reason why you would, considering it's as expensive, but half as good.
Right.
And Apple really doesn't need to compete with it.
If you're an Android fanboy, you would.
I guess if you're loyal to Android, I don't know why you would be, but I guess if you are.
Right. But that's a very small number of educated, informed, and fairly geeky consumers who are able to articulate a taste for Android over Apple.
What was the story? The AT&T CEO was blaming Google, Suncast, for the delay in the smartphone updates. This was a fascinating thing.
AT&T CEO Randall Stevens, I think it is, or Stephenson, he came out and he said that, well, the reason that none of our Android devices have gotten any updates or why it takes so long is because we have to wait on Google. And that doesn't really make sense. Google was like, we don't agree with you. The problem isn't on our end. We release the stuff open source. So once we're done with it, once we have a device launch with the current version or the new version, it's open sourced. So it's up to the manufacturers and the carrier at that point to take that and put it on their devices.
Yeah, because this is a big problem with Android and AT&T. You know, they're. Well, I'll give you one example. I have an AT&T phone here, which is sent by AT&T. I should use that, say that. And they just started rolling out the ice cream sandwich updates for this phone, and we have not gotten it yet here. And half the phones have it, and half the phones don't. And the update is pretty silly.
That's one of the other frustrating things, too, is that once you do get that update, you don't know how it's being rolled out and when you're going to get it. So you'll see maybe some of your friends get it, but then you don't know when you're going to get it.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
can you blame AT&T or do you blame? See, there's multiple things in the chain here. I think with Apple, the iPhone has been pretty good at saying, "Hey, listen, you guys don't control these updates. We do." Why haven't we seen the manufacturers do this? Why haven't seen Google do this? It's or nobody really wants to update. If you look at it, it doesn't sell phones if every phone is getting updated. Maybe it's a big conspiracy amongst all of them.
That could be. I'm just trying to look at the Google Google's response to the AT&T CEO. The AT&T CEO said, "Google determines what platform gets the newest release and when." Now, I don't think that's true at all. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that it's completely the handset manufacturer the carrier who determines what phones get updated, because they have to build it into their own compatibility with their hardware. And then often the carriers hold up a release by saying, well, we have to test it for network compatibility, right? So isn't that statement completely wrong?
Yes. How it technically it's supposed to be, and I don't know about AT&T, but I can speak about Verizon. Verizon has said numerous times that they're more than happy to do the updates. It comes down to the handset manufacturers, but the handset manufacturers are in bed with Verizon. So if Verizon's like, "Hey, listen, I don't want you to update that phone," they go, "Okay." Or they just never push it through and they say, "Well, we're having problems with the radio and it's not working," and they'll delay it until it's not worth it for them to update. Or it comes out like a year and a half later.
This whole thing it irks me because this CEO, Randall Stephenson, I don't find him a very trustworthy guy. I think he spins everything as much as he can, because if you look at everything that he said in the past, especially this whole thing with the T-Mobile merger that failed, his claim that, our merger is going to create 4,000 jobs. When has a merger ever created 4,000 jobs? Or if it was going to create 4,000 jobs, it was going to be 4,000 jobs that they switched around somehow.
Yeah, what they would do,
AT&T.
Yeah, they would create 4,000 jobs for AT&T because they would lay off 8,000 and keep the remaining 4,000 and put them as AT&T staff and say, "Look, we created 4,000 jobs."
And probably, and then they were like temporary restructuring people who were consultants that come in and say who else should be fired. And those were the jobs that were like a week long. I mean, I'm troubled by the fact that this AT&T CEO clearly has no idea what he's talking about with the technologies that he's in charge of. Also, he was saying he regrets that they released the iPhone initially, the smartphone data plans, as an unlimited data model. He said they regretted that because we conditioned consumers to think it was all they could eat, but it's not. Every bit they download costs us money. Okay, both things aren't true. First of all, it was never unlimited. It was always a cap of 5 gigabytes, just in fine print or unspoken.
Now, Eric, was it always 5? Or I remember reading 2 at one point, but was it 5?
Well, that's a blurry line because depending on where you live, how close you were to the tower, your nearby network conditions, it may have been, what would you call it, functionally impossible ever to reach that 5 gigabyte cap if you were in an area that only had Edge, for instance, or just a slower phone with low capacity and you weren't doing a whole lot. So, but I think the statement, "We trained users to think that it was unlimited," I think that was wrong. I don't think he did that. But secondly, the idea that every bit that people download costs them money, that's simply not how networking equipment works. You basically pay to maintain the equipment, to buy the spectrum, to maintain the load for any given amount. But after that, you're just paying to support the traffic, and the traffic is done on peering arrangements. So not only is that not true, but also point number 3 is that their data, the profits made on their wireless data, just as the profits on the cable company's wireline broadband, have continued to go up and up and up and up as they shift around their profit margins to more. They shift around their costs to make those the profit centers as voice minutes and TV traffic goes down. They make it up in data.
Well, if you also look at the fact that they got rid of unlimited texting plans as well, so now you have to pay $20 if you want unlimited. You don't have a choice of tiers for your texting anymore.
Yeah, and we all know.
If you want texting, it's going to be $20.
Yeah, I found that
unlimited or 1,000 or whatever it is, and that's the only choice you have, unless you want to pay a la carte, which is absolutely ridiculous. Even to send 5 text messages, it's going to be crazy compared to the cost that they built in for their tiered plan.
Yeah, you pay more for text messages now than you did 10 years ago. So right there, it shows you that their cost structure is divorced from their costs and is more a function of maintaining they're increasing profit margins
greed.
year over year.
I read, I don't know if this was AT&T, but one of the main, the big 3 or 4, one of their head guys was actually very upset over iMessenger. And he was saying how iMessenger, was it AT&T? iMessenger is costing them money.
Yeah, I think it was this guy. I think
I think so.
CEO.
I didn't want to say it was him without it being him, but I remember reading how upset they are about iMessenger, that they can now, if you have an iPhone, which a lot of people do, I mean, it's extremely dominant in the market, you could just iMessage and that doesn't go over your text minutes. So they were so angry that they're doing this, and one of them, I think, quoted and said,
that's the reason why they changed their tiered plans to $20 all you can eat, basically, and no more choice of what size you want?
No, I think what it is. Well, you think that has to do? I really have to. I think it's more appealing, and a lot of people don't really need the high tier text messaging because you have AIM and you have internet on there, so it doesn't really cost you part of your data to send it's not a text, but send a message over one of the IM services. I thought what you were saying was that because they did bump up the cost, so now the minimum payment for text messaging has gone up.
Here's my dilemma: is that if I were to ever look at a new plan, especially on AT&T, I don't use nearly that many text messages. Maybe at most I've ever used in a given month is 400 text messages. I don't need unlimited.
How many?
I don't want to pay $20.
How many texts do you send?
400 at most.
Okay, so I average about 140.
So then why should we be forced to pay $20 for a text messaging plan? That's ungodly amount of money for those many text messages.
Well, it comes down to the lack of competition, guys. I mean, it comes down to one thing, and that's there's 4 major companies in this country, and 2 are in bed. One is falling apart, and the other one runs the entire country when it comes to wireless data. So it's a silly thing that we're in. We don't have any competition. We don't have options. The best thing is going to be services like iMessenger or Google doesn't have one currently, right? I guess they do.
But
Google
then
Talk.
all they do is they just raise their data rates. We've seen them do it before. They've recently changed the way they structure their packages and raise their rates for everything.
Well, look at this
AT&T
now.
Just raised their rates by $5 for all of their data tiers.
I mean, look at T-Mobile, right? T-Mobile currently, they're just going to have their network compatible with iPhone. So does that mean they're going to get it, or does that mean that they have totally given up on this merger?
It doesn't mean that they're going to get it. They just want to be able to have the ability to support unlocked iPhones.
But this also really means that this merger talk and the relationship with AT&T is over.
Yes.
Because that was one major reason that they had in not getting the iPhone, is because they were trying to get this merger to go through. And that just shows the logic behind it. What was that, Eric?
There's an April 24th article from the New York Times talking about AT&T's earnings statement or earnings conference call. They said how industry-wide transition to slower growth in subscriber number, as more and more people already own cell phones and pay for plans, but more growth in data revenue, or so-called average revenue per user, ARPU abbreviated. And the way that they do that is by increasing average revenue per user is about 90% higher for smartphones than traditional cell phones. And the way that they are doing that, increasing the revenue per user, is by, they took it from an unlimited plan to a slower tier. A gigabyte now costs more in the 2 gigabyte and 3 gigabyte plan. The majority of people, they said, are paying for the 3 gigabyte plan, but are using an average of 150 megabytes. So what they've done is convince people to pay for many orders of magnitude more bandwidth than they're actually using, claiming it costs them per penny, but then not giving the customer back that money if they don't use that so-called per bit price.
That's amazing. Well,
but then they still want to charge, even just the cost of going with any other plan. It just is imbalanced as far as how much you're getting compared to how much you're actually paying for that. So if you want 200 megabytes, you have to pay what, $15, $20 for that? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Even if you want, 500 megabytes to pay $15, $20, no. $10 at most.
I'll tell you something. One company that's doing something good, and I do want to disclose that they are an advertiser of ours, and that's 2Cow. With Hover, but they have a phone company now that you choose what you want. Everything is a la carte. Your text, your data, your phone is all a la carte. So you could technically say, I want, 140 text messages. I want 2 gigs of data because I know I'm not going to use more. And I want almost no minutes because all I'm going to do is Skype. And you could get a phone plan for like $30 a month. Something like that. Smaller companies are probably going to spring up and do that, but I never see someone like AT&T or Verizon saying, "Hey, here's a la carte. If you're not using it, don't use it."
Well, in that example though that you gave, what's the big difference compared to AT&T? Is it that if you get a refund if you don't use that, or is it just that once you buy those blocks of minutes or text messages, they never expire?
No, well, every month. I mean, you're paying for what you're using. You don't pay for anything more. So if you want only 200 minutes, you're gonna get 200 minutes. But everything
basically
is
creating your own plan for that particular month.
For that particular month and for that particular phone, you're creating your own plan. So rather than saying, you're kind of locked into an unlimited text plan for $20, and you're locked into, and there's no contract, so you could change your plan depending on that month. So if you know you're gonna use more minutes that month, you could add more minutes for that month automatically online. And it's only a couple bucks more. It turns out to be a lot cheaper going that way. So rather than, if let's say you have an iPhone, instead of paying that $79.99 and you're getting like 1,400 minutes plus 5 gigs, you could bring that down by taking away features. You can't really do that with the big names anymore. I don't think you could really go down to a low package. I think the lowest package they have is like 800 minutes.
Yeah. Well, this is why I'm still with T-Mobile at the moment, is because I struggle so much with the fact that I don't want to pay the amount that these carriers are asking. I like the fact that T-Mobile has these options that fit my needs.
Right, and because we have no competition, what you see is they're trying to double dip. Whenever you're talking about network billing for internet usage or usage of a network, you can either bill really one of two ways, to be fair. The one is exclusively bill per usage, so you only pay for what you use, just like water and electricity. And you're not paying for what you don't use. That's fine, in theory. The other way is if you have difficulty measuring and metering that kind of data, or if that wouldn't support everyone, then you average it and you say everyone just pays the same amount for a flat rate, no matter how much they use, and that's just to support the maintenance of everyone's shared infrastructure plus the profit margin. These guys are trying to double dip. They're claiming on one hand that it's costing them per bit, as if every megabyte transferred cost them X number of pennies or dollars, but at the same time telling the users that they will not be refunded on minutes they don't use. So what did they provision that for? It's just electrons and bits. They didn't buy more bandwidth than they didn't use. That's part of the peering arrangement. So that's where it becomes dishonest and a huge profit area here.
Well, you know what's going to be really great is when we start seeing these toll-free data plans that are supposedly being rolled out, where applications can actually buy for themselves, so that you pay the application for that data instead of your carrier.
That's evil. That's the worst
Which
possible thing
Verizon
to do.
says that they're looking into big time right now. Is that all right? Well, then, so now you're going to pay $30 for a data plan, plus you're also going to have to pay for this application
monthly, probably.
Because it's exempt on our network since they pay us already.
Well, I think what they're going to do, and to kind of go off topic, I think what they're going to do is in the end, and I think you're going to see this with the at-home ISPs, like the wired ISPs also, is that certain services are going to be bundled with, let's say, Verizon Fios, for example. If you buy Netflix and you buy Hulu through Verizon Fios' service, where they're probably getting a cut out of it, they're not going to cap you. Your data caps and your throttling is not going to happen because you went through their service. So it's in their system. They're like, oh, okay, they're paying us directly for Netflix and they're paying us for Hulu, so we're not going to charge them. But if you go to Hulu's website and you get it, that way they're going to charge you. So this is their way of kind of forcing Hulu to pay up. It's almost like the mob. And you're going to see this with more features. You're going to see this with YouTube. You're going to see this with Hulu, Netflix, all these services. And with the cell phone, it's even going to be worse because you're going to release cell phones. Like, let's say this phone will be a Netflix phone. So Netflix is not capped on this phone. So you can watch all the Netflix you want, but only on this phone. And that's how they're going to start doing it. So certain phones are going to be for certain things.
You guys remember the social networking startup called Color that hit the scenes to much fanfare? They had gotten $40 million and did nothing with it. And now they're in the news because they're partnering with Verizon in order to provide special mobile services only to Verizon customers. If you've got the same Android phone, the same iPhone, same Windows phone on any other carrier, you won't get the features. And I'll bet you that has to do with
Well, they already do that now.
Well, I didn't hear you. Hold on. But I'll bet you it's because of that open mic, constantly uploading, constantly sensing and receiving its surrounding location-aware data. I'll bet it's a sort of a under-the-table subsidy way to do that.
Yeah.
They already do that now in terms of Sprint and the Google integration that they have with Sprint phones.
Yeah, and I just want to point out to people, because we talked about this I think months ago, and not lately, about the idea of 800 number pricing is something that AT&T and Verizon are now proposing to try to look friendlier to the FCC and the regulators and to consumers. This would kill the internet, and everyone has to understand this one, because we just spent the last 10 minutes talking about how wireless bandwidth is way overpriced, and we all agree it is overpriced. Now, what they want to do is, instead of making it a more competitive landscape where consumers have more control over what they pay and what they're getting for their price, and more transparency and a better consumer environment, instead they want to keep those artificially high prices and their monopoly and bundle it in, get the companies with the service providers with the deepest pockets to pay for it.
Yeah.
Get Microsoft to foot the bill for your Skype bandwidth. Get Netflix to foot the bill for that bandwidth, and for Hulu to foot the bill for that video traffic. And what that means is you're back to AOL or the early days of cable, where you're buying a service to get 10 to 50 top tier channels, and the rest it just destroys it for startups and newcomers.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that, and sadly, that seems to be the direction that we're headed. I think that's going to be the next step for these companies, where they're gonna somehow label it as you're getting a big deal. You know, it's a present for you. I mean, it's a treat.
We're saving you money.
BS.
Yeah,
working hard to keep your bills lower.
Yeah. I do want to go into this one story. The Foxconn CEO is saying that they're making preparations for the Apple iTV. I guess I'm wondering if this guy let the cat out of the bag by kind of talking about it. And
The funny thing about this stuff, though, is you can have all these rumors. Anybody can say anything. The fact is that whether it's true or not, you have no way to know.
You know what I find funny?
Even if it's true, there's absolutely no way to prove whether it's true or not.
What I find funny is that I'm sure Apple tells them that they can't talk about anything.
But it doesn't matter, because there's so many rumors out there, and it doesn't matter. A rumor is a rumor. You can't have any validity to it.
Terry Gou, which is the CEO, Go or Goo? Go. Terry Gou, the CEO of Foxconn, is preparing. China Daily is reporting that Gou said Foxconn is making preparations for iTV. So will that be the name of the device, iTV? I think that's a silly name. I think that's way too simple for them. What do you think, Eric?
I still have the biggest trouble wrapping my head around this idea that we've always seen these rumors that Apple is going to make television sets. I question, why would Apple get into something that has no profit margin, that is something that's on a 10-year, at best, 10-year upgrade cycle. At most, you tend to have one really good super TV per household, whereas everyone has an iPad, everyone has an iPhone, everyone has a Mac.
And you hang on to it for many years. When's the last time you bought a TV? I mean, 2007 was the last TV that I bought. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I mean, I'm 5 years in. My other TV in my living room, it's a high-end plasma from 2003.
Yeah, and unless it breaks, you never get rid of it, right? You always move it off to a different bedroom or a different room of the house, or you put it in your production studio or something. You always find a use for a television set. They never go obsolete. Apple's never been in that game. They turn cell phones into a yearly upgrade purchase. I just don't see how they're going to make that work, short of partnering with somebody. Or I think what they will probably do, if they want to get more into the home theater market, is to do more of a software-based approach, to use the Apple TV, use a set-top external thing that can be upgraded and bought on a faster cycle, and leave the actual panel of the TV set for someone else.
See, there's two directions they could take this. One, I can't imagine them. Well, first of all, what are they going to price this TV at? That's a major issue. I know they have a lot of the deals with the LCD manufacturers and the display manufacturers, so they might be able to bring the price down, but it's not going to be cheaper than $799 or $800 for whatever TV they're putting out. And what is going to make the average person go out and buy an Apple television. That's the whole idea. Most people, they don't go and buy the brand. They buy based on pricing. Everybody sees these circulars saying, $499, $399. We're looking for a TV. We're going to be broadcasting from Blog World, and we need 2 TVs for Blog World. And I'm looking for a deal for $400 so I can buy 2 TVs. People will. That's how they think when it comes to these appliances. They think by pricing. They don't think by brand, unless you're looking for a high-end television.
Right. And the one area where I think Apple might get into TVs is it would not be so much of a profit center, and it would not be so much to do things differently than they've ever done before, but sort of to put an Apple seal of approval on a best of breed panel. Just like how Apple hasn't made their own LCD panels for, maybe ever. The iPad, it goes either to, there was an article lately, Sharp was going to be the manufactured, and the award was given to Samsung because they came through faster with the technology for the iPad 3. They don't make panels. Other companies do. They sell them to Apple, and then because of how Samsung and these guys are structured, they can sell Apple their chips and sell Apple their displays, and yet still compete with their own tablets with the same product. So I would not be surprised if Apple, in order to add sort of just a stamp of approval, put that Apple logo on the TV, make it a nice design, well-designed TV, looks beautiful in the home. They would make less off of that, but they would essentially be reselling a best-of-breed television from someone else, like a Sony or a Samsung. They'd find the best panel and tell everybody, hey, you love our iPads and you love our personal computer products. Now have an Apple TV in your home, and we can guarantee you the best viewing quality.
So you're thinking they would take like the best Samsung and change the software on there and change like the bezel, and that would be it.
Exactly, just like they've done for years with their displays. All Apple LCD displays, including on the iMacs and the Cinema displays, have come from other companies. They've just been best of breed.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Or the other thing would be that in order to stay competitive, they would have to keep the price a little lower than they would want, but they would justify it based on updates that they could possibly release, just like how they have, cheaper updates for the Mac OS. Every year possibly they could do an update for $29, and you could just order directly through the TV to get the newest features, and that way they could justify it by lowering the price.
Yep.
What do you think, Suncast?
I really don't know much about this TV stuff. I'll tell you this though, is as far as the name is concerned, I kind of have an issue with it because there's a network in the UK called ITV. So if Apple comes out with an ITV, what's going to happen in the UK when they launch the Apple ITV, but they have a network called ITV?
Yeah, see, they'll just buy them off. Seconds, before I forget, what was the deal with the RIM stuff from last week? Did we find out what that Wake Up campaign was?
It was an absolute disaster, in my opinion.
So for people who don't know,
a website that had a bunch of words on the screen and a narrator saying, we're different and be bold, and it's just so ironic that the fact that they launched this campaign aimed it at Apple, and well, what do they have to show for it?
So what they
don't have
did
anything better than Apple.
Last week, they had this huge viral campaign. They went to Apple stores, and people in black shirts started screaming "Wake up" to the Apple store. And
it was an absolute letdown that the fact that they launched this huge campaign and they actually had some publicity for it. People were like, well, what the heck is it? And what's the big deal? And the fact that all it was, we launched a website that had a bunch of words scrolling on it like Star Wars and some guy reading it like a narrator.
I missed this entirely. So are you saying that there were RIM employees shouting "Wake up" at Apple stores?
No, they were actors. They hired people to put on black shirts and go to Apple stores. And then
they hired a blogger to actually incognito be there and say, oh, I was at the Apple store and I saw this happening and I recorded it.
Oh my God, that's sad. Wake up to what? Inferior products?
It's irony. No.
Was like, well, who are they? No, and why are they shouting "Wake up"?
Psychos, you missed it. It was an art piece, and it showed the irony of a company like Apple, a company like RIM telling Apple to wake up. It was all based on irony. That's all it was.
Well, that's what appeals to hipsters now.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. It's the anti-marketing campaign. Now they're going to get all the hipster business because they showed that they're clueless and don't have a clue of how to save themselves. So out of irony alone, everyone's going to buy BlackBerries.
That's hysterical.
Well, now that you mention it, RIM did make some moves this week in hiring a new chief marketing officer and a new operating officer, I believe.
Yeah, they're restructuring.
Yeah, they got a guy named what was his name? I have to find the article here. Christian Tier is going to be the new chief operating officer, and Frank Bulbin as the chief marketing operator. Now, this Christian guy joins RIM from a company called, get this, Sony Mobile Communications, where he served as the executive vice president and worked with an operational position with Ericsson in Europe. And we all know
What
how
happened?
well this whole Sony Ericsson deal worked out.
You
right?
want to hear a funny story about that? Sony Ericsson was supposed to send me 3 cell phones to review last year, and they sent it to the wrong address, and they were never able to get the device back. And I'm not talking like it wasn't like a Verizon that was sending it. It was actually Sony Ericsson, their PR department. They sent it to the wrong address, and they were never able to retrieve the phone. Like, they have no idea what happened, where it was, and they just gave up. 3 phones. They just gave up with that. I do want to go into the next story, and then we could do our picks of the week, because I'm excited for my pick this week. I don't know about you guys. There's a rumor going on that there's going to be no third-party browsers on Windows RT.
That's not a rumor.
Is it officially confirmed?
Yes, this is legit.
This is legit. This is happening.
Yes.
No third-party browsers on Windows RT. Windows RT, for people who don't know, is Windows Runtime, which is this awful name
It's the ARM-based.
It's the ARM-based stuff. Yeah. So if you're going to buy an ARM-based tablet or ARM-based netbook, it will run on Windows RT. And we are finding out that there is no third-party browser on Windows RT. This is very anti-competitive.
Well, the deal is that there's APIs in Windows 8. There's Metro APIs, the Metro UI interface, and then there's the classic Win32 APIs. And on Windows RT, they're sectioning it up where you can only use Metro. So if you want to build a application that runs on Windows for Windows RT, you have to use the Metro user interface and those APIs, which is not nearly as powerful and functional as the classic Win32 API are. But the exception to this, however, is Microsoft's Internet Explorer. They're letting their own browser work in both Metro and the classic desktop on Windows RT, which is the really weird thing, because that's where this whole anti-competitive thing comes with, is the fact that Microsoft is letting their own browser do this, but they're not letting anybody else do this.
What do you think of
which
this,
is a
Eric?
weird thing.
I'm behind on this story. Is their argument the same as Apple's for only having Safari as the only browser for iOS? Is it a security issue or a robustness issue that they're claiming?
Well, they're saying that this is just for the performance and the battery optimization, that you can only use these APIs.
Huh.
So will they let them even make a skin? Like, you know how there are so-called third-party browsers for the iPhone, but really they end up tapping into Safari's core web.
Is that what
API?
Google's doing? Because I know you can search with Google. Is it just tapping into Safari?
I think so. I'm not up on the most current part of that, but I think it is.
And I thought Bing was on iOS. Unless they have some sort of agreement that they're allowing. Yeah, but it's not a browser. It's a Bing browser.
Yeah, what they're saying is that they're banning these browsers from being used in these environments, which kind of they are, but they're also saying, well, because we don't think that you guys can actually make a browser that is going to not destroy the battery life and the performance of our devices, we're just not going to let you do it.
I can't wait to see the stat where Microsoft says we have 100% market share on all Windows RT platform tablets.
I do think it's a little weird, quite frankly, that
it.
they're letting their own browser have an exception to this. I mean, yeah, you do see that a little bit too with Apple and Android devices, but at the same time, it just doesn't necessarily gel quite well with.
By the way, Android, you're talking about Android browser. Android's standard browser is not Chrome. Chrome is still in beta. They have Chrome, and the Chrome browser is a lot better, but Google does not push the Chrome browser at all.
That boggles my mind, both from a marketing perspective and a user and a usability and user perspective. Why wouldn't they want people to use Chrome on their phones like they use Chrome on their desktop?
Yeah,
Wouldn't one
it's
feed into the other?
weird.
That's why Apple did Safari and Safari. They didn't have to do it like that. And also, why isn't there a prioritized push towards getting a better browser with their better branding onto the phone? It's weird to me.
Yeah, I don't know. It's strange. I always wonder, just the logic behind this. Like, we could sit here and talk about it, but I really wonder what happens behind the scenes, and like when there's a good TV show and the writers just ruin it, and people are like, well, I don't understand why they did that. That makes no sense to me. Like, there has to be some sort of logic behind it that we just don't understand. Maybe we're just too smart, Eric.
Must be it.
We could be too smart. Facebook is testing highlight features, lets users pay $2 to promote their status updates. This is going to be an abomination of social networking. I cannot wait to see some idiot take out a Facebook update for $2 to promote that she broke up with her boyfriend. Not with Tyler anymore. Ready to party. XOXO.
Well, the whole thing is that it basically gives them a guarantee that their item will show up higher in a newsfeed, because now it does it all automatically based on who it thinks that you're closest with and are important.
Well, I have the trending articles. Now we have trending articles up top, and I never click on them. I almost feel like it's gonna do something really bad because it's asking for like a weird permission. Like I have to add it to my Facebook. And I refuse to add any apps to my Facebook because I don't trust it.
Yeah.
So I get really paranoid when it's like, hey, Dig wants permission, add to Facebook. And I'm like, is this a real application or is this just BS? Like someone's just doing this.
I always say no to that stuff. With almost any kind of offer that I ever see says, oh, log into Facebook to do this or that. I say, hell no. I'm not giving you access to all my profile information and the ability to spam my friends and et cetera, just to see some goofy thing I can just go to your .com to look at.
Erik Lanigan, by the way, has very good Facebook etiquette. He doesn't spam you with stupid games. You don't get a Bejewel update from Eric. None of that.
I hate all that crap.
I get so angry. Like Farmville invite. I get so mad at that. I just post stuff once a day, if anything, and then that's it. I just leave it there. I don't constantly post. There are people that will use this service. I mean, for $2. I know they're trying to target, or I know more businesses will probably
do
this.
There's people like me that I don't have the smart newsfeed thing. I have it set so that I actually see stuff in chronological order.
Yeah, no, I know people are going to do this, man. I know, and it's not going to be things that I want to see.
You know what's the worst are those status updates that you see that somebody say, oh, well, look at this great video. But in order to see that video, you have to grant some app access to your Facebook in order to see that video or link.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm gone. When I see that, I'm gone.
Yeah.
Somebody did that to me the other day. It was like, oh, look at this cute video. And I click it, and I'm like, and it's asking me for permission to add its application and everything. I'm like, screw you.
No, because that's probably not a real video. It's going to take your password and it's going to spam everybody.
I don't know what it's going to do.
I have a relative that constantly sends me attachments, and she doesn't know how to just drag a picture, and she'll zip up a picture. Like it's almost like she went to school, like she learned how to send emails at the spammer school of emailing. And she'll send like, hey, really cute picture of you that I found. And it'll literally be a picture of me when I was like a kid, but she'll put it in a zip file and send the zip. Like she doesn't just like have it attached to the email. So it's attached within a zip, and I never open them. Like I just delete them. And she finally is like, hey, I've been sending you pictures and I never clicked on them. I'm like, do you understand what you're doing? I'm like, you're sending me spam emails that God knows what it could be.
Is it wrong that I automatically delete everything that my grandmother sends me?
No, I think that's the way to do it. And I advise everybody out there, one piece of information, the pick of the week, if your grandmother emails me, you just delete it. Don't even open it.
She's like, well, Andrew, I put .exe at the end so
Yeah.
you know it was important.
Yeah, I put .exe and I wrote Viagra in spaces. So I don't know. This is just the idiocy of the internet. Thank God for the iPad, because I think it's eliminating a lot of this. I think the iPad has stopped a lot of this. I really do. I think a lot of people that really don't know how to use computers are using the iPad, and they're kind of closed into this environment where they can't really screw it up. I don't know.
God, I hope so.
I hope so.
But I still think there's people out there that are like, well, they don't even know how to use the iPad.
Have you seen the video?
That's the other thing.
I want to go into the pics, but have you seen the video about it says this woman gets their father, I think it's a commercial somewhere in Sweden. She gets the father an iPad, and he's like, "Oh, this was the best gift you ever got me." So he's using the iPad as a cutting board, and then takes the iPad, puts it in the washing machine, in the dishwasher. It's the greatest commercial ever. I think it's time to do our picks, guys. Picks of the week. If you have a product that you want us to feature, I get a lot of requests actually. Last week, because I did Jolly Fast VNC for the Mac as a VNC client for the Mac. I don't know if you use VNC, Eric.
Oh, I was thinking you said VLC. VNC. I use the built-in screen sharing client that on the OS 10.
Okay, so I've never used it actually. Maybe I should look into that. I use Jolly Fast VNC, and I feature that, and I got maybe like 15 emails from people saying, "Well, no, this is my favorite VNC. This is my favorite VNC." So, if you have any suggestions or products that you want us to talk about, if I like it, I'll talk about it. You can send me an email at guysfromqueens@gmail.com. Eric, do you want to go first this week, or should I go first? Okay.
Oh, I thought that was your pick. I'm confused.
Oh no, that's last week's pick.
Oh, okay. But by the way, well, I'll just throw in my 2 cents on that then. That if you do use the built-in client on OS 10, one of the nice things is you can actually pull up an instance of VNC from the Safari browser. If you type like VNC:// and the IP address of your local computer, I've done that, and then I put that link. I drag and drop that into one of those springboard @ in my dock. So when I click that, instantly I'm connected from my little computer here to my big desktop computer. And
I had no idea you could do
across
that.
the room. What?
I had no idea you could do that.
But that's only if you're
so
using Mac,
instantly, just
right?
one click, I'm on.
It's only for the Mac though. Yeah.
Right.
So like you
But
can only
basically-
use that on a Mac and connect to other Mac computers.
Yeah, it's basically built in, hardwired into the OS. But
Kind
that's
of like
not my
Windows
pick.
RDP.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So my pick of the week, though, is a downloadable video game for Xbox 360. It's only $15. It's called Trials Evolution. It is I wouldn't call it a racing game. It's sort of it's a motorcycle game where you control the motorcycle rider, but he's not in a race, and it's not what you'd think. It's more 2.5D. You're on a set course, but you're controlling to make sure he doesn't crash. And it uses a very sophisticated physics engine that is dedicated. The whole core of the Xbox CPU is dedicated to controlling this physics engine, which is not so much realistic as it is just kind of fun. It's very accurate, but it's almost like you have almost moon physics for the gravity.
Oh, very
and your
cool.
motorcycle, you can fall thousands of feet in the air through these huge jumps and land safely as long as you land and balance properly. The closest analogy I can think of is not a racing game, but actually Line Rider, that old little Flash game where you'd build a track with a bunch of loops and falls and dangerous terrain. And he'd send the little guy on the bobsled down, and you'd hope that he wouldn't crash or die a horrible death. And it had ragdoll physics for the rider, that kind of thing. So that's what this does, only it's on a motorcycle, and it's through beautiful surroundings, A+ graphics all the way, 60 frames per second consistently, gorgeously rendered outdoor environments, very cool, very well done. And they have a great sense of humor because when your rider crashes, often you'll have like just random landmines and stuff that'll get him, or he'll fall into a shark tank or something that just happened to be there in the level. But every time when you get to the end of the finish line, the idea being that you get the best score by not crashing and not dying at all. Mm-hmm. So as soon as you cross the finish line, your little driver often goes like head first off of into like a brick wall, or just straight off of a cliff, or like a bomb falls on him, or just some absurdly comedic, hilariously way to kill him at the end of the reward for getting through the track safely.
I'm looking at it. It looks great, actually.
It's very fun. So Trials Evolution. Oh, also huge community. If you're a person who builds your own levels, they give you the actual level editor that they built the program with, the original levels. You can modify those, and then there's a whole community of people who upload these for free. So it's the $15 game that keeps on giving. If you like the game, you can continually download free levels from the user community at infinitum. So that's my pick.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play this tomorrow. Saturdays are Jessica, my wife, is out all day, and I just spend the entire day watching YouTube videos, drinking, and possibly playing video games. So I think I'm going to download this
Anything
tomorrow.
to avoid work.
Anything to avoid any type of work, I'll be doing tomorrow. So I'm going to download this tomorrow, and I'm going to play it because I have some Xbox credits that I haven't used. Very cool pick. Very, very cool pick. Suncast, you're up next.
I am?
Oh, no, I'm next. I'm next because I see what
You
you
want to go next?
did.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't really do a lot of video editing. Most of the time, that's what Suncast is here for. Even my personal stuff, Suncast is doing at this point. So when people ask me, and I actually said this the other day, they said, well, what do you use to edit video? And I go, Suncast. They're like, no, what program? I'm like, Suncast. I'm like, I don't know, just Suncast. I love not knowing how to do some of this stuff because that's less work for me. And to the point that now you're getting editing jobs, right, Suncast? Because I keep telling people that Suncast is my editing software. So they're like, you know what? I want a Suncast, so let me edit. So we got an editing job recently, and I'm trying to find the application because I want to load it up, and it's not loading. But I needed to take a DVD and rip a DVD and send it to Suncast, and I didn't know how to do this. Someone recommended I use Handbrake. I've never used Handbrake before. I'm sure Erik has used Handbrake in the past.
Every day.
Every day. What do you rip with it?
I don't. I actually use it. I actually use Handbrake now. Their latest version is the best codecs and the best customization for doing any video podcast of any kind to get to any platform, iPhone, HD TV, you name it. They got the better codec than $1,000 network software.
Really? I had no clue about that.
Yeah, I've tried Telestream's Episode is a big high-end professionally priced like over $1,000 encoding application.
Yeah.
Handbrake just beats them. It's on speed. It's so much better than Apple's product. Any of Apple's compressors that come with Final Cut. It's just the best, and it's totally free.
So it's very easy to use. I have Handbrake pulled up here, but I can't show it. But Suncast has the website here. It's handbrake.fr. It's a French website, but they make it so easy. It's totally free to use. Oh, you got an image here? Here we go. There you go. So it's totally easy to use. You can select the video type, the frames per second. You can select the bit rate. You can select the quality. You could do the audio. So it's very customizable. You have different options. You could do large video, web optimized, MP4. So many different options to use. You could start a queue. You could change the picture quality. I absolutely love it because it's simple to use. So I took a DVD. I ripped the DVD. And it's extremely fast because it actually optimizes it uses all your cores on the Mac, so it's great. I haven't used it on Windows yet, so it uses all your cores, so it actually is blazing fast when you're encoding. But the quality, you don't lose any quality, or very little quality. I mean, you really don't notice the loss in quality when you're taking a DVD and you're ripping it to an MP4, or you're taking an HD video and you're pushing it down to a different file. Let me see. Oh, Suncast pulled it down. But very easy to use, totally free. And I'm actually going to be using this a lot more. And maybe I could help Suncast with a lot of our conversion because I know he spends hours reconverting videos from our unedited version to
my life is now 20 years shorter.
I know, from all the time you've spent. But Suncast, have you considered using Handbrake?
I've considered it.
Is there a reason why you haven't?
Know. I don't like the way it works personally.
Okay. Personally, you don't like it.
Really?
But I absolutely I love it. I think it's great, and that's my pick of the week, and it's Handbrake. Handbrake.fr is the website.
I love that program so much. Like I said, I use it for all podcasts and video production. Here's a tip that you guys will like. If you, on the Mac at least, if you copy the actual .app, the executable, and you copy that, and then you can open individual instances of those copies, as long as they share the same queue, you can have as almost infinite number. I get up to about 3 or 4 before my Mac Pro is saturated. The cores are saturated. So you can do it in parallel, basically. You can have multiple instances of Handbrake, each encoding one video. And as optimized as it already is, you can kick your CPUs all the way up to 100% by getting a bunch of copies going at once.
Wow. That saves time, too. Very cool. Very, very cool. Suncast, what is your pick of the week, sir?
All right, so
I know you had trouble early in the day finding something.
Yeah, I picked something here. It's called it's an add-on for Firefox called Resume Later. What it does is it allows you to save YouTube videos at a particular time so that you can easily go back and view those videos at the time that you left it. So I'm going to go over to my screen here and I'll show you. So like say for instance, I had to shut down this computer, but I wanted to watch a video and I'm interrupted. I want to save it. So I'm here watching Tech News Weekly. It's playing. I'm like halfway through and I wanted to save it. If you have the add-on installed, all you have to do is click the button here in the new add-ons bar. I don't know if you can see that with the lower third on there. If you can take that down for a moment so that people can see.
There we go.
Thank you. And then if you click that, I already have one in here, but you just click the button again, and it'll be added right at that same spot. So even if you go to another page here, I'll go back to the main YouTube page, bring this back up, and you'll see in the list you have that video. I'll click it. It'll open a new window and resume at that exact spot that you left it off at.
By the way,
really cool.
By the way, is that my YouTube account you're logged into?
It might be.
How do you have that password?
I don't have that password. I hacked it.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty cool add-on for Firefox. It's called Resume Later. So if you're a guy that you're always on YouTube, but you're always interrupted and you want to be able to watch the video where you left it off at, this is a great add-on for you. It's easy to use. It's right there in your add-on bar.
Very cool, Suncast. Very, very cool. And that wraps it up for this week's episode of Tech News Weekly. Be sure to follow Erik on Twitter at Erik Lanigan, also eriklanigan.com for all Erik news. Erik is a very busy guy. He does a couple of podcasts a week, right?
Yeah, between 1 and 4 a week, depending on the week.
Very busy. Well, you like doing it, so that's good. At least you enjoy it.
Yep.
Suncast has a great website called Amadeus. Suncast, how do you spell it?
AMADAIS.com.
Amadeus features
I got a
up-and-coming
girl on there right
artists.
now, Melanie Webb or something like that. She has such an amazing voice. You guys really need to go and check her out.
Yeah, it features up-and-coming artists that do cover songs, and you can submit, if you have a song that you saw. Great site, Amadeus. Also, if you miss any portion of our site, you can go to our website, guysfromqueens.com. We have a new streaming site. We have a new gfqlive.tv, so if you go to gfqlive.tv, you'll be able to see the brand new streaming site that we have rebuilt. If you're experiencing any bugs, of course, let Suncast know. He'll fix it. And we'll see you all next week on Tech News Weekly. Good night, everybody.